The Lamenters chapter are famous for their storied history and misfortune. They were created as part of the 21st founding and have featured prominently in various conflicts, the Badab War and their 100-year penitent crusade, to name a few. They are also famous amongst painting enthusiasts for their yellow power armor and chapter emblem, a bleeding heart in a white circle upon a checkered background. Hello there, in this video we're going to show you how to paint the yellow power armor of the Lamenters chapter, as well as how to paint their chapter emblem. The paints we'll be using are on the screen now. After a bit of testing, these were my favorites for a nice bright warm yellow for the power armor. We also have a list of additional equipment we've used, but you can use whatever brushes you feel most comfortable with. If you're new to painting or want to brush up on your skills, you can check out the Citadel Color Painting Essentials playlist to learn all about our paints and techniques. As you can see, we've undercoated our Lamenter with grey sear spray. This will help with getting a nice bright yellow base coat. We've also put the power armor and left shoulder pad on sub-assemblies to make the painting process easier as well. Let's get painting. The first thing that we need to do is load up with Imperial Fist contrast paint and apply it all over the power armor. Apply in blobs, don't paint traditionally with strokes, as this will create unwanted tide marks. As you can see, I'm going to do it in sections rather than all over at once. This will allow me to control the contrast paint a bit more. Once I've got the leg completely covered, I'll go back around with a dry brush, soaking up any excess that I can find. By applying the contrast paint in sections, this gives me enough time to soak up excess without the worry of it drying already. Once the main part of the model is covered, remember to also do the backpack, but only the trim of the shoulder pad as well. Imperial Fist is a fantastic contrast paint with loads of pigment that covers very well. It leaves a flat finish that is perfect for power armor. Our next step will be to add some shading, depth and warmth to our yellow. So in order to do this, I'll be using Cassandori yellow shade paint into all the recesses. I'm using a medium layer brush here, but feel free to use a small one if you want more control. Once you've done all the recesses, then do a 1-to-1 mix with Lamium medium and apply towards the lower areas of the power armor or where natural shadow will be. This helps to bring a bit more warmth to the power armor. If you found that you've applied too much, you can always tidy back up with Imperial Fist contrast paint if needed. Our yellow is starting to come to life now. However, we're just going to push the contrast a bit more with a darker recessed shade. I want to add a bit more depth to my shading, so I'm going to thin Scrag Brown with water to a 1:4 ratio and apply it into the deepest recesses. I'm using the point of a small layer brush here in order to be in as much control as possible. Scrag Brown will really make our power armor pop out nicely, as it's a very warm but still light brown tone that fits perfectly with our armor. You can go with something like Rhinoxide or Wildwood if you wish to, but I found that those paints were just a bit too dark. Nice, our armor is now fully shaded and it's time to start highlighting. My highlight for the power armor will be Phalanx Yellow, and I'm going to pick out all of the edges of the armor panels. Phalanx Yellow is a nice bright yellow that works perfectly over our Imperial Fist base. Take your time when doing this, using the edge of your brush and light pressure while holding it to gently glide over the edges. This will help to keep your line nice and consistent while also reducing the chance of making spills and blotches. The more you practice this technique, the better you'll get, so don't be discouraged if it's not working straight away. Just keep at it and you'll develop muscle memory with this technique in no time at all. With that completed, our armor looks awesome. You can leave your Lamenter's power armor here if you choose to and be really happy with your end result. However, in this video, we're going to take the armor to the next level with a couple more highlights. I'm now going to do a second edge highlight on the power armor with Dawn Yellow. Dawn Yellow is already very thin, so you don't need to add too much water, just enough to make sure that it flows off the brush nicely. When painting a second edge highlight like this, try to keep it within the lines of the previous stage, as this will help to get the effect of our layers working together to give the overall highlight more definition. I'm also going to pick out the upper 3/4 of the armor's edges, leaving whatever edge I think won't get as much light with just the first highlight stage. I understand that this is a long process, but it's definitely worth the end result for your characters and heroes. Just one more step on the armor to go. For my last step, I'm going to use Wraithbone as a dot highlight on all the corners of the power armor. This just helps to make them pop a little more. Wraithbone is a fantastic natural spot highlight here, as it is an off-white with a warm undertone that suits yellow armor. Use the point of your brush to apply the dot highlight, and remember to have a nice light pressure when doing so. This will help you to keep the dot small. And there we go! Our Lamenter's yellow power armor is fully highlighted and looks awesome. Now we're going to dive straight into doing the chapter emblem on the left shoulder pauldron. Okay, the first thing that we need to do is base the shoulder pad with Corax White. Watch out for the trim armor that we have painted already, so it's worth it to take your time with the application and be as neat as you can. You can see that I've thinned out my Corax White with a bit of water and making sure that I don't repeatedly paint the same area. Once my first layer is dry, I'll come back and do more, building up the courage and leaving me with a nice smooth white base coat to work from. Our base coat is done, we're going to jump straight into doing the checks. It's time for the juicy part of this tutorial. I need to paint the checkered pattern on the shoulder pad that the Lamenters are famous for. We're going to use Abaddon Black and a small layer brush to map out and paint our checks. Right, in order to get the checks done, we need to do a couple of things first. As you can see here, we found what we think is roughly the middle of the shoulder pad and done a vertical line from top to bottom. Once we've got that center point, we can then add more lines to both sides of it using our eyes to roughly keep them the same distance apart. When we're done with the vertical lines, repeat the process doing horizontal lines. Because I am painting these over a curved surface, they are not going to be perfect squares. I'm going to have the vertical lines angled slightly in at the top in order to give me the width at the bottom. Remember, when doing these, it's a lot easier to brush towards yourself, as this will help you control the paint. Once that is completed, all that's left to do is fill in every alternative square with Abaddon Black. Just take your time doing this and enjoy the process. Remember to keep your Abaddon Black nice and thin and don't paint over the same area repeatedly. Let it dry and don't be afraid to come back and do it again. If you've made a mistake, you can just tidy back up with Corax White. And there we go. With the tidying up stage done, our checkered shoulder pad is complete. We now need to tackle doing the circle, heart, and blood drop. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is the circle that sits in the center of the checks. I personally found that attempting to paint a perfect circle is rather difficult and very, very time consuming, even more so than the checks. So naturally, I needed a way to work around this. When I looked at the Space Marine transfer sheet that comes in the Company Heroes box, I noticed that it has little white circles on it. Perfect. So I'm going to apply one of these to the center of the shoulder pad. If you want to know more about how to apply a transfer, we have a Painting Essentials video all about it. Okay, with the transfer now dry, I'll now paint over it using Corax White. I'm doing this for two reasons. Firstly, it will give the transfer the same finish as the rest of the shoulder pad, and secondly, it'll give me a nice base coat to work off for the heart and blood drop symbols that I need to do next. Just be as neat as you can when doing this. With the transfer applied, I now need to paint the heart and blood drop in the center. Mephiston Red will be my choice for this. In order to make the heart easier to paint, I'm going to map out how big it is and where I want it to be. So I'll put a dot on the lowest point, a dot to show me where the highest point on each side is, and then one where the top of the heart dips in. I'll then put a dot either side to give me my width. I have always found that it is a lot easier to paint emblems this way rather than attempting to paint the shape straight off. I'll now make sure that my paint is thinned and then outline the heart shape by connecting the dots. By keeping my paint thin, it means that if I do make a mistake, I can easily tidy it up with Corax White. Once I've outlined my heart, all that's left to do is fill it in. Again, keep your layers thin, as you don't want any unwanted texture here. With that done, I'll just paint the little blood drop on the bottom left-hand side of the heart. And there we go! Our Lamenter's chapter symbol is done and looks awesome. I've painted the rest of the details and attached the shoulder pad and backpack. In this video, we've shown you how to paint Lamenter's yellow power armor and how to approach painting the chapter emblem. We've had a lot of fun with this video, and we hope that it's given you the inspiration to get your own Lamenters painted and on the gaming board. For more tutorials, tips and tricks, check out our videos on the Warhammer YouTube channel, or you can head to your local Warhammer store where our amazing staff will be more than happy to help. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!